Tells me Iranians, and by the way, I want to transition into this question, and I got a few other things I still want to go through, but I saw a video you posted, I think 2 weeks ago, where it went viral. And if you remember the video, that I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. You're speaking in Farsi, so I can't show it. I'm sure most of the people watching this, a lot of them will be Iranian.
We subtitled it in Hebrew and in Arabic.
I know you did. I know you did. But the last time you and I spoke, I pressed you a little bit at the end about, hey, nobody understands what it is to be the son of your father, the grandson of your Reza Khan, and all these other things. Do you want the job? Do you want to go back? Do you want to go back to Iran? Do you want to go back to being that? And you gave your story, and then I pushed back again. You gave your version, and then finally you're like, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to be a vessel, but I don't want to move my family back, or I don't want to go back and be that person. Has anything with your position changed since the last time you and I spoke?
Look, I've always said that my life is dedicated to the liberation of my country, and I've always considered the finish line be the day that Iranians go to the poll and elect their next future democratic government. But as an instrument, as an agent of change who has been called upon, I'm not shying away from this responsibility. There's a tremendous amount of expectations that my fellow compatriots have in the role I can play to help them in that transition. And, I would stick to this line and say, I'm not going to put the carriage before the horse. I think we need to get to the point that then everybody, including yours truly, can say, okay, what's next? But we need to get to that point. And I need to remain focused because I don't want people to be distracted as to a bunch of hypotheticals.
You think that way has worked?
Pardon?
You think that strategy has worked?
Well, certainly I get the feedback from Iranians that is positive because they see that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for them. That's a big difference.
But again, so you have to realize, I would like to see, you and I have a similar desire. I do as well for different reasons. However, the difference is the following. Do you think, are there people that you believe would make good leaders for everybody to get behind in Iran? Are there people that you know and you see that you can endorse and vouch for and say, if that guy did it, I'd get behind him. If this guy did it, I'd get behind him. If he did it, I'd get behind him. Do you have certain names that you see?
I'm certain that Iranians don't lack talent in every aspect of managing and running a country, whether they are entrepreneurs, whether they are specialists or scientists or good managers and what have you. They just need to have an opportunity to show up. Under this regime, they could not. All the talent that we've had either been forced to leave the country because of persecution. They had to live away from their country as exiles. They all migrated and became citizens in other countries. And most of them realized that so long as this regime is there, all of these dreams and hopes for rebuilding our country will be unattainable as long as the regime is in place. But immediately, once this regime is gone, everything changes. All the circumstances are provided for all of us, including myself, to be able to help and rebuild our country. But I don't think we need to start putting, titles and positions to anything. I think that has to be a process, which is why I said, look, rather than jumping the gun, let's focus on what needs to happen. I'm prepared to lead this transition. I have taken this
as the leader or as a advisor,
leading the transition, meaning
and going
being
back to
the leader
Iran.
in that transition,
and going back to Iran.
And of course, I can't do it from a distance. I have to be able to be in Iran. The minute the circumstances are ripe for me to be able to be there safely, of course I will do that. Help with that transition, and then we'll see what happens. Let the Iranian people
see. There's too much gray area in that answer.
But I don't know what part of it is unclear.
No, but it's very gray, and I'll give you an idea what I mean by it's very gray.
Okay.
And again, it's don't take this personally in any way. It's just my interests are the same as yours. I want to see that place be peaceful. The world, I will feel more peaceful if that chaotic regime doesn't exist, where they look at us as the enemy and the Western, ideology as enemy. And I think the tourism back to the Middle East will increase in ways we've never seen before if that regime is no longer there. And, in business, I know guys that every year they make $10 million, they take 100% of profits off the table, right? And I know guys that they'll make $10 million, they put 100% of $10 million back into the business, and next year they make $20 million, they put 100% money back, and then 10 years later they make $370 million. Then they're like, okay, now there's something that we can do. The current regime in Iran doesn't reinvest the resources in Iran like the way your father did. Your father put money back into Iran, and these guys are taking money off the table for themselves. That's why Khamenei's got a $95 billion net worth, that whole family, and most people are not aware of it. No, I think, if we go back to case studies of what's worked, Bukele was like this. Boom. I'm the guy. I'm here. I want to do the job. Let's roll. Milei, boom. I'm the guy. Screw these guys. We're going after them. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why. I need your support. And he called out everybody. Trump, I'm the guy. Boom. Here's what's going on with America. The swamp is this. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody got behind him. I'm the guy. So a part of voter turnout being that low means there is nobody that's going like this. There's a bunch of gray area. And no one wants to follow somebody. I've been in leadership and business for a long time. Every time I see a company go like this, there's nobody that's casting a real vision that's clear. The concept of casting a vision, Crown Prince, has to be, in my opinion, I can be wrong and I'm very comfortable being wrong. The idea of casting a vision has to be boom. It can't be boom, 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 boom. It's got to be boom. Easy to understand, easy to replicate, easy to share with somebody else, easy to say, I'm with this guy. Why? Because of this. And it paints the picture of the enemy clearly, and people realize who the enemy is. On the Iranian side right now, I don't see that. I don't see somebody that's doing this. And I think, frankly, to be very direct. So let's say Trump wins on Tuesday. Let's say he does. Let's assume he does win on Tuesday. And if he doesn't, that's going to get worse the next 4 years, by the way. These executions and all this stuff is just going to get worse. Chaos in the middle is going to get worse and worse because Kamala is way more progressive than Biden is. Biden was a moderate trying to win the progressive vote. Kamala is a progressive trying to make herself seem like moderate, and she's not a moderate. She's never been a moderate, right? So, but if Trump does win, the strategy on Iran needs to be clear now, because you're not going to get possibly another chance for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. How many candidates are going to come that are going to be like this? Trump's like this. Most of them are very diplomatic. So if you don't have another 20 years to do this, that means there's 46 years that Khomeini, all these guys have had it under control. It's going to go for 66 years. I think the Iranian people deserve better to get something right now to say, no, this is our time. We must seize. Let's go. And urgency. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Here's why. I don't feel that today. You may say it in a different ways. I just don't. I think the current strategy is still a little bit of gray instead of black and white. Let's roll. Come behind me. We're going to make this happen.
Okay, so if you allow me to respond. First of all, I define this campaign as a two-stage campaign. And I have a 5-point plan of how to go about it, not only in phase one, which is now, until the regime is no longer there, and then what happens right after the regime during a transition to ultimately a secular democratic system. And I think part of the reason most of my compatriots support me in this effort is because, in fact, they understand my approach. They understand the components of this strategy. I have explained it, and there's much more explaining to do and messaging, of course. But it incorporates a vision of how to approach this issue. What is needed for us to get there? What do we need to bring maximum support and pressure on the current regime and support for the people? How can we have the Iranian diaspora be effective in influencing foreign governments in coming behind this and help us succeed back home? What happens after Iran changes the transition period? What is the interim government responsibilities? We have economic experts thinking of the first 100 days of how to run that temporary government. We have legal experts focusing on constitutional law, on truth and reconciliation as to what has to happen with the remnants of the regime and so on and so forth. There is a newer project that I've started a couple of years ago, which we refer to it now as IPP, Iran Prosperity Project, which means what is our roadmap to Iran reconstruction and recovery? How can we bring in the kind of resources, assets, investments from companies and expertise to redress our country's economic woes and problems? All of that is part of the strategy, and it's been explained and it's been discussed. The only difference is that if you think that I have to necessarily say I'm running for office will make the difference. I'm telling you, we are way ahead of the curve arguing this issue prematurely. Right now, my focus is the only job that I think I have, and for which I have the most support from my compatriots, and that is to be leading the transition. But in order to lead a fair transition, you cannot be biased. You have to be completely impartial and neutral. That it's not for me to advocate, should it be a republic, should it be a monarchy. All I'm telling about my fellow compatriots is that for us to succeed, we need to be able to have a secular democratic system. And the biggest lesson we learned under 46 years of religious totalitarian dictatorship is the fact that we cannot achieve the kind of freedoms we want without having separation of religious from government. That's now a concluded reaction, and we had to go through this sad experience to get to this point. Now, at the end, what the people want, we will find out. Let the ballot box define that. I believe in the sanctity of the ballot box as being what determines the issue. And ultimately, the highest instance in any land that people's representative can legislate and decide for the country is the Majlis, it's the parliament, one that we do not have. So I based everything on the transition period, bringing us to a point that we can have that constitutional assembly decide what's best for Iran. And unlike 1979, where Khomeini was an unknown, nobody understood what it means to have an Islamic republic.
But they paint the
People
enemy
had
so
to
well,
vote in plain light with some guy standing with a Kalashnikov over a barrel, and you had to throw in a green or red.
But he took a position, though. But he took a position, and the reason
that
why
nobody understood, nobody knew, including the intellectuals that at the time thought that he might be the solution.
I thought it was actually a very simple campaign with his tapes, and I listened to a lot of the stuff that this guy, all he's doing is making money. Look at the 2,500-year anniversary thing that he put. That's your money. Why should he be spending all that money? If you make me become the leader, I'm going to give that money back to you. We're going to share the wealth together, and you're going to have everyone's going to have rice, and I've heard all these speeches many times.
False promises.
It is, but it worked, meaning it is, but at least he was casting something. He was casting a vision. I think when good or bad candidate, it doesn't have to be, you can learn from everybody on the way they did it. I just think sometimes when you go, by the way,
I think I'm casting a better vision than Khomeini, who talked about free electricity
I don't
and free
disagree.
water.
No,
I'm talking about something that President Trump emphasized, that bringing the current regime into the fold of the Abraham Accords, as if it's what's going to happen. I tell you what, when I was in Israel a year ago at a press conference, what I said was I hope the day will come that Iran will bring the Abraham Accord to the Cyrus Accord, meaning Iran is part of that, a different Iran, an Iran where the Iranian people are not at war with the Jews or Israel, are not at war with the Arabs in the region, are not trying to instigate chaos in the whole world, but Iranians who want to live at peace and a vision of that future. You mentioned my message to the region and all the feedback it got. Why? Isn't that a vision I talked about?
There is, but respectfully, there is having a clear vision and executing.
Well, executing has to have the means, which is why I'm saying it's not going to happen by itself.
Let me ask you a question.
Part of it is what foreign governments can do. They can be an obstacle to that and make it more difficult for us to succeed, or they could be on the right side of history this time.